Welcome to another deep dive, and today we're heading into the fascinating world of robotics, specifically a robot designed for extreme terrains.
Definitely extreme.
So to kick things off, the research we're diving into today is titled Robotic Locomotion Through Active and Passive Morphological Adaptation in Extreme Outdoor Environments.
Quite a mouthful.
It is, but trust me, the content is way cooler than the title.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
This one is for all of you out there interested in robotics, nature-inspired tech, or just cutting-edge innovations.
Exactly. It's not just about fancy programming. It's about how this robot adapts physically to its surroundings, which makes it super unique.
All right, let's get into it. I'm already intrigued. So how did the researchers come up with this adaptable robot?
Well, they turned to nature for inspiration, which is always a good starting point.
Yeah, makes sense. Nature's been doing R&D for millions of years.
That's right. So they looked at animals like armadillos and hedgehogs, creatures that can curl up into a ball for protection.
Yeah, I see where they're going with this.
And even tumbleweeds.
Wait, tumbleweeds? Those dried up plants that roll across the desert.
The very same. They use a spherical shape to move around, and it's surprisingly effective.
Huh, never thought about it that way. So they're taking cues from Mother Nature's best designs.
Yeah.
All right, what other animals inspired this robot?
Cockroaches, believe it or not.
Really? Cockroaches. Not exactly the first animal that comes to mind when you think of cutting-edge robotics.
Right. But they're incredibly good at squeezing through tight spaces.
Okay, I can see that. Survival of the fittest and all that.
Exactly. Then there's the kangaroo, with its powerful legs that store energy for jumping.
Ah, so like a biological spring, are you saying this robot can jump?
We'll get to that. Oh, and they also studied worms and octopuses, both experts at squeezing through gaps.
Nature truly is the ultimate engineer. They basically picked and chose the best features from across the animal kingdom, didn't they?
They did. So are you ready to meet this remarkable robot?
You bet. What's this marvel of engineering called?
They call it GOT.
GOAT, as in the greatest of all time.
You got it. It stands for Good Over All Terrains.
Goat. I love it. But tell me, what does it look like? Is it like a giant metal goat?
Not quite. It's about a meter in size.
Okay, so picture a large dog.
Yeah, that's a good visual.
Yeah.
It's made from elastic fiberglass rods, tethers, and it uses electrically driven winches and wheels.
Okay, so it's flexible and has wheels. That makes sense for rough terrain. But what makes this robot so special? What sets it apart?
GOAT has this unique ability to transform. It can reconfigure itself into two main forms.
Transform. Okay, this is getting interesting.
So it has a flat rover form for driving, like a traditional rover.
Right, I can picture that.
But then it can also tuck in its wheels and morph into a spherical form.
Hold on, it turns into a ball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that spherical form is for rolling and protection. Think of it like a robotic armadillo.
A robotic armadillo that can roll around. Okay, my mind is officially blown. But if it's rolling around, how does it know where it's going? Does it have a ton of sensors?
Actually, that's the brilliant part. It doesn't need a lot of sensors. It relies on its ability to adapt physically to the terrain.
So instead of relying heavily on sensors and programming, it's more about feeling its way around.
You got it. That's what makes it so adaptable and efficient.
That's so clever and way less complex than I imagined. Tell me more about how it actually navigates tricky situations.
Sure. So in its flat rover configuration, GOA can actually overcome obstacles that are about 14% higher than its center of mass.
So it can climb over things taller than its own knees, so to speak. That's pretty impressive. What's the success rate on that?
They found it can overcome those obstacles about 38% of the time.
38%. Not perfect, but still pretty good for a robot just feeling its way around. How does that compare to other robots?
It's quite remarkable, actually, especially considering its simplicity. Many robots struggle with obstacles of that height and often require complex algorithms to navigate them. GOA just kind of figures it out as it goes.
Fascinating. It sounds like it's designed to get back on its wheels literally if it stumbles.
Yeah.
All right, what other tricks can GOA perform in its rover form?
It can squeeze through gaps 10% smaller than its width.
Whoa, think of it like a robotic contortionist.
Exactly.
Now that's an image. Where would this be useful?
Well, imagine search and rescue missions, or exploring tight caves, or even navigating through debris. Anything where space is limited.
So not just mountains and deserts, but also tight, confined spaces. This G really can go anywhere. But how does it get between these challenging areas?
Well, it can drive autonomously. It uses a GNSS sensor, which is like a super accurate GPS, an IMU to sense its motion, and a path following controller to navigate between waypoints. They actually did a test where it successfully followed a path for over 300 meters.
Wait a minute, hold on. It's driving around completely on its own,
Yeah.
reacting to its environment, navigating obstacles, all autonomously.
Yep. Pretty impressive, right?
That's incredible. All right, so we've covered its flat rover mode. What about when it's in its spherical configuration, the ball mode? What happens then?
That's where things get even more interesting.
Okay, I am all ears. Tell me about ball mode Jeek.
Well, for one thing, it's incredibly impact resistant. The frame absorbs and dissipates forces when it's dropped. It handles impacts way better than when it's in its flat configuration.
So if it rolls off a ledge, it's no big deal, it just bounces back up?
Pretty much, and it can even initiate rolling by itself just by shifting its center of mass and following the terrain.
So it's not just tumbling haphazardly?
Nope, it's actually controlled rolling. They did an experiment in a snowy mountain environment where it covered 1.4 kilometers just by rolling.
Wow, almost a mile.
Yeah.
All without using any energy to power its wheels.
Exactly. This makes it incredibly energy efficient, perfect for long distances.
So it's a master of both passive adaptation, reacting to its surroundings, and energy conservation.
Amazing.
But can it choose when and where to roll? Or is it just at the mercy of gravity?
That's a great question. And that leads us to GOAT's active reconfiguration abilities.
So it's not just about passively adapting to its environment.
Right. This robot can actively change its shape to accomplish different tasks. That's what really makes it stand out.
Okay, I am hooked. Tell me everything. What kind of shape-shifting moves can this robot pull off?
Well, it can change its aspect ratio when it's in its flat rover form.
Aspect ratio, that sounds a little technical.
Yeah, it basically means Gyoki can stretch and squash its body.
So like a robotic accordion.
Kind of. By changing its shape, it can actually adjust things like speed and turning.
Oh, so it's fine-tuning itself for maximum speed and agility, kind of like a robotic cheetah adjusting its stride.
You got it. And they found its fastest speed was about 1.4 meters per second, and that was with a specific aspect ratio.
It's like an optimal shape for going fast.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about in its spherical form? What kind of active changes can it make then?
Well, when it's in its ball form, Gyoki can actually move its internal payload around.
Internal payload, what does that even mean?
Basically, it means it can shift its weight around.
Ah, I see. So like a shift in its center of gravity.
Right. And by doing that, it can intentionally start rolling.
So it's not just tumbling haphazardly?
Nope, not at all. It's actually controlled rolling, and it can even reconfigure back to its rover form if it needs to make a controlled stop.
So it has brakes.
You could say that. They actually demonstrated this in an experiment on a grassy slope, and Jote could reliably start and stop rolling on command.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
It's like it knows when to roll with it and when to put on the brakes.
It's pretty cool. And that's not all. There's one more trick it can do.
Okay, lay it on me. What else can this shape-shifting robot do?
It can jump.
Jump? Are you serious?
Totally serious. If it needs to make a sudden move, like to avoid an obstacle, it can do this rapid tendon release.
So it's like a slingshot?
Kind of. It basically launches itself upwards.
How high are we talking here?
About half a meter high.
A jumping robot. That's wild. Okay, this Goby really can handle anything. Mountains, tight spaces, sudden drops, nothing can stop it. But has it actually been tested in the real world?
No.
Outside of a lab setting?
Oh, yeah, definitely. They put GT through its paces. They did this one real-world test with land, water, and even a boulder field.
Hold on. Rewind. Did you just say water? This robot can swim.
It can. It uses its wheels for propulsion in the water.
The wheels. Not like flippers or anything.
Nope, just the wheels. And they found it could achieve a speed of 0.5 meters per second in the water.
So it's not breaking any speed records in the water, but still a swimming robot.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. Oh, and did you say it was more energy efficient to swim than to drive?
Yep, 56% lower power consumption when swimming compared to driving.
Wow, so it's an eco-conscious swimmer too.
Right. It all comes down to friction. There's less resistance in the water compared to, like, rolling over rough terrain.
That makes sense. So less energy wasted battling friction.
Exactly.
Okay, so it can swim. What about the boulder field? How did QT handle that?
That's where the spherical transformation came in handy. It just rolled right over obstacles that it couldn't drive over.
Smart. So it just transformed into a ball and went with the flow.
Exactly. And in this whole test, it covered 70 meters, including swimming, driving, and rolling. It transitioned between all these modes seamlessly.
That's impressive. Talk about adaptable. It sounds like they really pushed Jate to its limits in this test.
They did, and it performed really well. But they didn't stop there. They also took Jay on a much longer journey, about 4.5 kilometers, through a mountainous environment with snow, rivers, and steep slopes.
Well, 4.5 kilometers, that's like an ultra marathon for a robot. Did it survive?
It did. It used a combination of rolling, driving, and even riding some river currents to reach its destination. And remember how we talked about how efficient it is in its rolling mode?
Yeah, it's like a rolling stone gathering no moss. We're using very little energy.
Well, on this trip, rolling used 90% less power than driving.
Wow, talk about energy efficiency. So not only is it super adaptable, but it's also a marathon runner and a tree hugger.
Exactly. And as for speed, it reached up to 4 meters per second rolling downhill and 2.3 meters per second driving.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
This robot can swim, it can jump, it can roll for miles, and hit those kinds of speeds.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think they really did pick the perfect name, Joe.
It's definitely living up to its name. And this is just the beginning for robots like Joe. The possibilities are endless.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What kind of impact could robots like Joe have on the world? What's the big picture here?
Well, it has a lot to do with how we think about robots in general. You know, it's not just about sending them to extreme places.
Right.
It's more about the ways they can help us understand and explore our world. Even protect it, maybe.
I like that. So before we get too carried away dreaming about the future, let's talk about how Joe stacks up against the competition.
Yeah, good point.
I mean, we've seen what it can do, but is it really the greatest of all time, the GOAT, like its name suggests?
It's a tough question because different robots have different strengths, right? It depends what you're looking for.
That's true. So what are some of the key things we should consider when comparing GOAT to other all-terrain robots?
Well, we can look at cost of transport, for one. Basically, how much energy it takes to move around.
Okay, so like fuel efficiency for a car. Got it.
Exactly. We can also look at its weight, how steep of slopes it can handle, its maximum speed, how far it can fall without getting damaged.
Right, right.
And of course, those unique environmental adaptation strategies we talked about.
So it's not just brute strength or speed.
Yeah.
We're looking for a robot that's well-rounded, adaptable, efficient, kind of like a robotic decathlete.
Exactly. And when it comes to cost of transport, Ju is incredibly efficient, especially in rolling mode.
Yeah, we saw that in the mountainous terrain tests.
Right. And it actually outperforms some other really capable robots like A&E by a pretty wide margin.
Hey, wow, that's the one with the legs, right? Kind of looks like a dog.
That's the one. So Ju 8 is the energy-saving champ, which is huge for long missions where you might not have easy access to power.
Makes sense. What about weight? How does GOAT compare there?
The GOAT is a lightweight, coming in at under 3 kilograms.
3 kilograms. So like what, 6 pounds?
A little more than that. But still, remember how we talked about it fitting in a backpack?
Yeah, I was amazed by that.
You don't see that with a lot of robots that have this kind of capability.
Right, that's a big deal when you think about transporting it to remote areas or needing to deploy it quickly. Like imagine a search and rescue situation after an earthquake or something.
Exactly.
But it doesn't sacrifice performance for portability.
Nope. It can handle slopes up to 33 degrees, which is steeper than a lot of hiking trails.
Wow. Okay, so it's got the climbing skills. What about speed?
It can hit speeds over 3 meters per second, and it can survive a fall from over 10 meters.
So it's fast, agile, and tough. It really does sound like an all-around champion.
It does, doesn't it? But for me, what really makes Jute stand out is that unique combination of active reconfiguration and passive adaptation.
Yeah, that shape-shifting ability is mind-blowing.
Right. And no other robot can really match that.
Because most all-terrain robots rely on a lot of complex programming and pre-planned movements, don't they?
Yeah, they have limited adaptability. But Jute can transition between different ways of moving, using its shape to react to the environment in real time.
It's almost like it has an instinct for how to navigate, like a real animal.
That's a great way to put it. And it's that bio-inspired approach that makes Jute so efficient, versatile, and robust.
So it's not just about mimicking nature, it's about understanding the underlying principles and applying them in a really clever way.
Exactly.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've gone from bio-inspired design to robot rivalries and really explored the potential of this game-changing technology.
Right, it's exciting stuff.
It really is. If I had to sum up what I learned today, it would be this. Sometimes the most elegant solutions are the simplest.
And adaptability is key.
Joe has certainly proven that.
Oh,
Thanks for taking us on this journey into the world of adaptable robots.
it's been my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning,
and keep asking those big questions.